Okay, welcome everyone. It's nice to see so many people here. My name is Kristen Leone. I'm a friend of Steve Caputo's. I was so delighted when Steve asked me to participate in this and to interview him for his book launch. I mean, just a round of applause for the author. I had the delight of meeting you through the ultimate connector, Father John Gilmartin. Where's he? Get ready, we're going to bring you up on the mic later.
Yeah, get ready to make a speech.
But he had introduced me to Steve through his artwork, and I was blessed to have a few pieces in my house now, and then we got to know each other on some other projects, and so I'm here to be a conduit for all of you. We'll open it up for Q&A later too, but this is an opportunity for Steve to not have to read awkwardly from his book, but for me to prompt him and ask some different questions.
Everybody knows how I read awkwardly.
So, Steve, you had told me a story about how when this book is the story of your journey and your diagnosis, and you had told me a story that when you got that you said, let me get the quote right, let's get on it.
Yep.
So I thought, now let's get on it. And
Right.
I wanted to start with, there's a page in here for anybody who has a book, it's page 24, where it's called Sunday Reflection. I think it's appropriate that today is a Sunday.
That's right. And it was when I wrote it too.
And you talk about why you came upon the name Light of Day for the gallery, for the photographic work that you do. And I was really struck by the fact that you said, when I boiled it down to the least common denominator of the images, regardless of their genre, the one constant is that the subjects all reflect the light of day. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about that, because I think that's really beautiful in what you go into here.
Okay, well, thank you, first of all, Kristen, for being here and for doing this. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that and appreciate everybody being here. Thank you so much for that. So when that particular passage of the book and my thoughts about Light of Day when it originally started was, from a photography standpoint, everything that we see and everything that we see and take pictures of is a function of it being reflected, light being reflected off of ourselves, off of these walls, off of these pictures. And so when it came to naming the gallery and naming the work that I was doing, Light of Day stuck with me. And as I started writing these essays and going through my health crisis, it occurred to me that the support and love that I was getting from everybody was reflected. It was love reflected in everybody. And so that's why it came out the way it did.
Very good. So tell us a little bit. I mean, it looks like we're joined here by some amazing friends and family and supporters and people that have probably been members of your care team. But for those that don't know, maybe give us a little bit of a synopsis of that day when, we've talked about how there's moments in time where you mark things before and after.
Yeah.
Maybe you talk a little bit about that and how that sparked what became this book.
So the end result is what you're looking at on the walls here and what's in the book. The starting point was a rather normal day, and we had just come back from a trip to England where we walked, Bonnie and I and her cousins had walked 15 miles a day, something I never did before and have not done since, through the Cotswolds area of countryside England. It was beautiful. And we felt great. I had no reason to think anything was wrong. And when I got back, probably 3 or 4 weeks after that, we were sitting at the kitchen table having breakfast, and I had a little trouble swallowing. And that was the first instance that I knew something might be amiss. One thing led to another, and once I had received an endoscopy, it was diagnosed that I had this, what they call an adenocarcinoma on my esophagus. And they told me when they did this, I was coming out of anesthesia when they did the endoscopy, and the doctor came to me and says, I see a malignancy there. I'll just tell you that that's what we're dealing with. And I don't know where it came from. I don't know if that's just a natural reaction in me or what it was, but my first reaction was, let's just get on it. Let's get on it and start to take care of it. And that's when the snowball started to roll.
Tell us about this book and the American Cancer Society challenge that you were doing. You had been an artist and you had been photographing for a number of years, but writing hadn't been something. Writing is new to you, and to go from zero to published author, that's quickly is very impressive. So tell us about how the writing came out of you.
So, like I said, the end result is the book. The beginning was the whole story that the book kind of encompasses, and it was, what do I do with this, and how do I leverage what gifts I might have into something that might benefit other people. So I started, once I was diagnosed, for some other reason, Facebook sends you this algorithm that says the American Cancer Society is doing this photo a day challenge in October, and would you like to post a photo a day? And I said, well, I could do that. And so I signed up for that. And the day that it came upon that I was supposed to start posting these photos, I said, I really need to do more than that because I have a story to tell. I realized at that moment I had a story to tell, and I started to write my thoughts down. And as it turned out, I would post these pictures on social media and post the what turned out to be essays each day along with them. And that was how it all began.
So I wonder if we could talk a little bit about you. Fairly early in the posting and fairly early in the book, you talk about 3 different ways that you were caring for yourself. You talk about placing the well-being of my body in the capable hands of some very amazing healthcare professionals, and then positive thinking, mental exercise. You talk about physical exercise as well. Mm-hmm. But then you switch into talking about spiritual energy for me comes in the form of prayer and reflection. I've placed the well-being of my spirit in the hands of God. And then another one here, you have this beautiful picture of a barn, which looks familiar. I feel like it's probably out on the North Fork
not
there.
Far from you.
And this one's titled Faith. Faith is knowing in the dark of night that the sun will rise. Maybe you could talk about how that became such an important part of this book and also your experience in moving towards healing.
Yeah, so again, there are 3 components to the journey that I've been on. One is the physical, the other is the mental, and the third is the spiritual. And I would put equal weight on all of them in terms of how important they were to my healing and to my well-being. I think in all instances, it's a matter of giving it up. And so my physical well-being I gave over to the physicians and the nurses that took care of me, some of them who are here today. The mental well-being was that, I had my wife Bonnie to support me, and that let's get on it attitude, wherever that came from, was going to stick with me and going to help me. It was going to be the one contribution I could make to this. And then the spiritual well-being, I had a mentor and a guide, Father John, who happens to be here, and very consequential to...
Maybe you want to come up and raise your hand so that the whole rest of the group can see that you're not just hiding in the corner. For anybody who's ever been to a mass here, in Centerport, in Bohemia, in Garden City, that knows this man, he's very fond of calling people up at homilies and pointing them out in the congregation. And so this is a payback,
it's a
maybe?
good opportunity. But anyway, Father John and I had talked a little bit, and I just got a sense of calm and wellness and well-being through our conversations and through reaching my own spirituality through our conversations. And that, again, was as important a tentpole in my recovery as anything else.
Had faith always been such a core part of your experience? You have another note in this November 17th entry that I was really struck by that says,
You really read this book.
While the fog may obscure my view of the land, I try not to fear that which I cannot see. My faith is the compass that will guide me safely home.
Yeah, to me, again, giving it over and knowing that there are things I can control and things I cannot control, and the things I cannot control, why should I worry about them? Why should I expend good energy on something that I can have no impact on? And so I would let it go and let God take over. And that was comforting to me. That was very much of a source of comfort.
So you talk about letting go. I'm wondering, you have a section here that's letting in. And, I think asking for help sometimes is more difficult for many of us than others. And so in the course of this book, you really write beautifully about that. And so maybe you could share a little bit about asking for help and then specifically letting in.
Yeah, if there's something that I didn't know, there's many things I didn't know that I learned through the course of all of this, much about my treatment and terms and terminology and things like that. But one of the things that I learned that I didn't know how to leverage effectively. How to leverage effectively was letting people in and accepting help. And if I could give advice to anybody else who's on this path or any other path where there's a struggle involved, don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to accept help. And we all, I think everybody here finds themselves in a position to offer help. It's very easy and desirable to want to offer help. Asking help, not as easy. But I found that in doing that, again, better health, better mental health, better spiritual health, and just more love in the air. I don't know how else to say that.
That's beautiful. It's also beautiful that at the moment you're talking about letting in, we're letting more people into the gallery right now. So welcome to everybody who just joined us as we're talking about Steve's book. Maybe to that point too, you talk about over one of these images where it says you and me and God, and it talks about how you've seen God in the other people that you've maybe received help from or found the courage to ask for help from. Yeah. And I wonder if you can talk about either an example of that or how you came to write about that.
The essay starts to talk about in any conversation or any transaction of dialogue, it's always a you and a me. Either I'm talking to you, or I'm talking to you and you're talking to me. There's always a you and a me involved in that. And even when it's a broader sense of one person talking to others, the person hearing it is just, it's between two people. And I think the same is true in terms of a conversation with God. It's a conversation between you and me. And in God's ears, God is the me and I am the you. And speaking, directly to people and seeing the kindness and love that I've seen in people through all the support that I've received, for me, I'm able to see, or I feel like I'm witnessing the face of God in those people.
That's beautiful. There's an image that you've pointed out to me, and it's fantastic that it's on the wall here at the gallery too, so people can really dig in on it. But I wonder if you can talk about this one. It's a photograph, and it has a rowboat and a life jacket. And when you talked about this idea of asking for help, sort of where were you when capturing this, and how did you come upon this?
Yeah, that was one of the first images in all these images as I was writing the essays, I would kind of look back in my catalog of photos and find out what kind of matched the sentiment I was thinking and writing about. And this was an instance where I actually went out and I had an idea in mind and didn't have the image and actually photographed it. And it was actually in Northport, down by the harbor of the rowboat. And at the time it was, I had the song Rescue Me in my head. I couldn't get that out of my head. And if you go back and listen to that, you could interpret that song as a prayer almost. I don't have the lyrics here, and I can't sing, so maybe Will can sing that later. But yeah, it was the idea of asking for help and looking for it and being receptive to it.
Love that. One other that I'd love to call out in the course of this is this, where you talk about filling the frame.
Yeah.
And this is also available for folks to see in a larger version. Talk about this, because this is, moving from that place of, well, you've got this diagnosis, how are you battling through this? Okay, asking for and receiving help, and then making the best of things in a lot of ways, and being fulfilled.
Yeah.
Maybe you could talk about that.
So the picture itself, Mike just left, a friend of mine, Mike Rector, also a photographer. He and I went out one day out east. This is in East Hampton, and we were actually heading out to the lighthouse to take a picture of the Montauk Lighthouse during Christmas when it was lit up. We stopped in East Hampton on our way because we saw the windmill, and we wanted to get a picture of the windmill. We got there, we parked the car, and next to the windmill is this, I guess it's a museum, and this is 11 o'clock at night, and the lights were on, which was weird. We walked around, and when we got to this area, the picture made itself because the light is just flooding towards you. And the picture, speaking from a photographic standpoint, I was able to fill the frame. I was able to fill the frame with an image that told a story from one side of it to the other. And where that resonated for me in writing the book and in going through what I was going through, the sense was where I've come from through all of this, maybe even before this, I don't know, it's live every moment. Don't waste a moment. And now in particular, as I'm kind of, going through this journey and really not knowing where the end game is in all of it, I made up my mind to make the most of every day. Always good advice I'd heard before, and you can never say that enough, and remind people that they should make the most of every day and every moment, in a sense of giving, in the sense of loving, in the sense of enjoying what's around you. And that kind of went all the way back to my photography, because when we're out shooting, it's a matter of seeing what's out there around you, and if you just take a moment to look for it, it's there all the time.
That's beautiful. I will say, this book is an example of your journey through cancer and working through this, but I would say it's so important and universal. There's so many universal themes that you cover in this that it's highly, highly relevant for so many people to consider. I did want to open it up if anybody had a question that they wanted to ask.
Joe.
I think the world of you. But I gotta tell you, I actually read the book, but what escaped me was in the beginning, no anger. I didn't sense any anger, and I'd be so pissed off.
That's fair. That's fair. And I can't explain that. Like I said, the reaction that I had when I had the reaction, I don't know that I would have, if you would have told me this is what's going to happen to you and these are the cards you're going to be dealt, what are you going to say? I don't know that I would have, I don't think I would have known this reaction. Maybe it's faith. I mean, again, there was an overwhelming calm when it happened. And, all the things that I don't mean to get overly religious, but the thing that I pray for is strength, is peace of mind in whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I can do what I can do, but I can't do it all. So,
other questions or comments? Well, I don't want to leave us off without Steve. I mean, I know that there's been so many people that have helped you along this journey, and so maybe you could talk a little bit about what all of that support team has meant for you. I know specifically you had talked about healthcare professionals, in addition to, of course, your family.
Yeah, well, the wide angle starts with every one of you, because all the people that are here, I feel it, and I hope you feel it. It means the world that you come and you support me, and if this can help somebody else, that's the reason that I felt motivated to commit this to writing and to put it into book form, for the sake of somebody who doesn't know these words, doesn't know the language, doesn't know the experience, doesn't know what to expect, that maybe this offers a sense of comfort. So from the wide angle, as you start to pan in, the healthcare professionals that I had, the doctors and the nurses, the care that I received was incredible. I can't say enough about it. I went through the Northwell system. I was at the Northwell Cancer Institute on Pulaski and Park, and Robin and Joanne were here, and Lauren, your dad, was the guidepost in getting me started through all of this. Just so many people from a healthcare professional standpoint touched my life. From a spiritual standpoint, Father John, again, it was unexpected that I would have the response that I had and that I would have the result that I had, both in the sense of the book and in the sense of my health to date. So it's been unexpected, and there's a word for that, and I'll use that at the end. And then last of all, Bonnie, she has been nice to have a nurse in the family, to say the least, but she's been a caretaker and just an amazing partner to go through this with, and I couldn't have done it without her. And the rest of my family, of course.
I was talking to Bonnie when I came in this morning, and she pointed out an image. I believe it's also on the wall over there. You can find it on page 10 here, where you can see the ripples And she talked about how you never know, right? Like you never know the influence that you'll have and what that ripple effect will be and how that moves onward and outward. And I think, to me, Steve, you're such a striking example of that.
Thank you. The title on the wall there is, I think it's a simple act of kindness causes a ripple through the world. And again, it goes back to living every moment and recognizing that the smallest actions can have the biggest effects on people.
Is there anything specific you wanted to say before we wrap up?
The-
Can I shower you with praise and
No,
encourage
please,
everybody to?
I'll mic drop it on there.
Okay, well,
Could I add something?
sure.
I'm sorry, I'm one of the newest people here to meet Steve for the first time, although I have heard about him for a while because I had read your earlier books where you had beautiful photographs and wit and wisdom that I always thought was so great. And then Father John mentioned to follow your blog during your illness, which was so inspiring. And I guess I have to say that this is a particular time where it's wonderful to come across a person, a human being who is so amazing and inspiring in how you have faced so much of the themes you've highlighted here, adversity, you've come through it, and even holding on to your faith and allowing it to grow deeper, and then to share it with such eloquence. It is a great inspiration. So I know I'll be one of the people that will be definitely not just pushing your book, but giving it to people that I know that I work with who are struggling with all of their issues, and exactly what you highlighted in that ripple effect, it will carry on. So thank you for doing this today and allowing people like me to encounter you. Thank you.
You're too kind. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Kristen, I have a question. First, a comment. I thought your questions were brilliant, and you embraced the book and captured so much of what the book is about. What was the experience for you in meeting Steve? How did that relationship evolve? And
You
what
knew
did
he was going to
discover?
do this.
Well, thanks to you, I was introduced to Steve and his artwork and, was able to welcome Bonnie and Steve to my house. I live out in Jamesport on the Peconic Bay and had the good fortune of having Steve help me pick which wall, and was very generous with the different photos. But then what's really struck me in getting to know you were a couple things. One, I had a lot of empathy for your journey. My best friend had battled a rare cancer a number of years ago and died in her mid-30s, and that was a really formative experience for me. And so I could truly empathize with what you and your family were going through. But at the same time, I've been particularly inspired by your let's get on it attitude. The fact that you just went right to it and said, you know what, I'm going to publish a book. The fact that you take your ideas and make them into a reality immediately is fantastic. Steve and Bonnie host concerts at their house with a variety of artists, which has been really inspiring. And so your creativity has been something that I found compelling and wanted to take action as a result of. So that's another part of your ripple effect going forward. So I encourage everybody to make sure you don't leave without a copy of Picturing Hope, not just for you, for your friends and loved ones as well. I know Steve's going to make sure it's in, infusion centers for chemo and different doctors' offices as well. And then direct folks to his website. I believe it's Light of Day Gallery, and that's a great place to follow what Steve's up to, but also direct folks who you think might be inspired by the words he has to offer. So thank you.
Thank you. The two things I wanted to just end with, one is through all of this, if you don't believe in miracles, you ought to, because I am living proof of that at this point, and I don't know what to do with that except to share it. What's the second thing? Oh, the second thing was, the pictures, the book, everything that I'm doing, the reason I wanted to have this reception and the reason that I wanted to have the show was to kind of let people know that the book is here. The proceeds from the sale of the book here today and the art are all going to the American Cancer Society to support their great work, because without them, thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate you all being here so much. Thank you
so much. Enjoy the artwork, and there's some snacks and beverages in the back too, so please be sure to enjoy.